You want to go from this to this. I'm here to help. Ninja Gaiden is a notoriously difficult series to get into, not just because the games are challenging even on their normal difficulty, but also because they're just unorthodox as hell, and not just in their own genre, in gaming in general. So what ends up happening is new players will enter the first or the second game, will bounce off it, or finish it without ever quite finding their footing, and therefore never having fun. I'm here to fix that. I want to give you a quick crash course so you can enter the first game as soon as possible with some sort of game plan. Ninja Gaiden has a ridiculous amount of game versions, with differences ranging from very big to very small. Thankfully, when it comes to brand new players in the first game, the choice is very clear. Just play whatever you have available on your system. That is, if you have an Xbox, I definitely suggest to play Ninja Gaiden Black. I consider it the definitive edition. But if you only have a PC or a PlayStation, you should definitely check out the Master Collection, which has Ninja Gaiden Sigma. While Sigma is a remix of Black, a remix with notable changes that some consider unfaithful, at its core it's still 2004's Ninja Gaiden. Seeing as you're a new player, the whole point is to get you playing any NG game. And if you're on PlayStation, you don't exactly have a better choice. It is also highly likely that if you fall in love with a series, you will eventually play both anyway. A very important part of enjoying Ninja Gaiden is getting in with the right mindset. If you're coming over from other character action games like Devil May Cry, you might have to adjust your expectations a little bit. Ninja Gaiden from the ground up was designed to be a game about aggressive enemies. They will get in your way and they will interrupt you. You won't have the luxury of doing very long combos, at least not ones you haven't earned. Another important thing to mention is healing items, and other items by extension. See, just like how Ninja Gaiden is designed with aggressive enemies in mind, it's also designed with the player taking a certain expected level of damage. So the healing items are intended. They are not like Bayonetta, where they're quite cheaty and also bar you from the highest rank. Here, you can get the highest rank while also using them. So use them. Use all items all the time, whenever you can. They are very important tools. To sum up, when you're playing Ninja Gaiden, you're supposed to be thinking about, how do I win this fight? Not how I look winning this fight or did I play it flawlessly. Believe me, after hundreds of hours, there will come a time where you can access more sandboxy play, and you can do challenge runs, but for now, focus on winning. The game is designed around matching you, so you should try to match it too. Over the years, there have been a lot of criticisms lobbed at the Ninja Gaiden camera, and I agree with some of them, but nonetheless, it exists and we have to deal with it. So I'm gonna make it very simple and easy for you. Never touch the right stick, only use the right trigger. What the right trigger does is center the camera behind Ryo. You have to get used to using this in combat, in platforming, in traversal, no matter what, at every point in the game. Never touch the right stick, you're only gonna cause yourself headaches. Movement is usually the first barrier players encounter. Ryu is quite unruly, his run has a lot of commitment, and you can never quite seem to get him to go where you want him to go. But I promise you, with a little bit of practice and patience, you're gonna learn it, and you're gonna see just how skill expressive this movement system is. The first thing I want you to do is to find what the block button is. Hold it down, and flick the left stick in any direction. Ryu's gonna do a roll. Now after you do that roll, I want you to press the jump button. You're gonna see that Ryu does a roll into a jump. This is the main mode of transportation. Forget running. This is how you're gonna be navigating 90% of the game, including combat. So get used to it. A very important tip that you need to absorb from the beginning is to just flick the stick. Do not hold it. That is because you're gonna wanna be able to flick in opposite directions all the time during combat. And traversal. In fact, I want you to practice this. Flick the stick in one direction, then immediately flick in the opposite one with a jump. That way you see Ryu do a roll and then he should jump in the opposite direction. This is very important to master, because platforming often involves having to roll in one direction and then quickly readjusting with a second roll or a jump. Another very important technique to learn is the homing jump. If you press light attack with a jump, Ryu will hop to the nearest enemy. This is very important for a variety of reasons, not only because your jump is one of your main modes of transportation in combat and you want to be repositioning towards enemies all the time, but also because if you press the jump button again when you're around the enemy's hitbox, you're gonna jump off them. This is very important because it's safety, it lets you reposition, and you're gonna find that you're gonna be using it all the time. The last part of the movement to talk about is the walls. They're pretty self-explanatory and we're gonna get more in depth with them later. For now, what I want you to do is to roll around and jump around the first area for a couple minutes. Just get a feel for how Ryu moves, understand how far your jump is, understand how to get on walls to run along them, and etc. The first area is perfect for this because it's kind of like a playground. There's no way to immediately get good at the movement. That's kind of its charm. It's very skill expressive. So give yourself some grace. Move around and just play the game. You're gonna get used to it as your run goes along, I promise you. Remember how I said you should find and hold down the block button during movement? Well, same goes for combat. In a lot of other games, the primary defense is dodging or iframes. Here it's guarding. To get a good idea of how strong guarding is, I want you to go into any ninja fight in chapter 1 and just hold the block down. Don't do anything else. You're gonna notice that the ninjas can't seem to do much. Now when you see them pause between their attacks, strike when it's safe to do so. This is essentially the crux of Ninja Gaiden 1's combat. You play defensively until you see an opening and strike within that opening. This sounds pretty simple on paper, but becomes significantly more complicated in practice. Not only because enemy attacks will overlap in unpredictable ways, which can make it difficult to judge when an opening is safe, but also because as early as chapter 2 and 3, enemies will start both guard breaking you and grabbing you. Thankfully, there's an answer to both of those things too. When you're guard broken, just roll in any direction. Ryu will automatically re-guard for you. As for grabs, they're a bit more complicated. Basically, the best tip I can give you is just don't turtle too much. Understanding just how much to block before you get grabbed will come down to just playing the game a lot. But I would say after you block a couple of hits, either reposition or punish, because if not, grab might be coming. During chapter 2, you're also going to pick up the ability to counter. Now, unlike traditional parries, countering in Ninja Gaiden requires you to actually take the hit on your guard. So when an enemy hits your guard, you can press light or heavy attack to do a counter attack. These are incredibly strong, but it's important to keep in mind that they're not always the best option, because you can get heavily punished depending on your positioning, especially if there's multiple enemies around you. Sometimes it's better to just block the attacks and then reposition or punish different way. It's very important to also know that you can start guarding even before your string ends. For example, if you're doing a light heavy attack, once you input the light heavy, you can start guarding immediately. Ryu will guard as soon as possible. In fact, he will guard a little before the animation is even done. This is gonna save you from a ton of damage over the course of your playthrough. To close out the defense section, please remember that you can combine what you learned in the movement section with this one. A good defense isn't always blocking or countering. Sometimes it's moving away and positioning differently. The first tip I can give for offense is please use your shurikens. It is most likely on your circle or B button. They are so underutilized by new players and they have no idea how much utility they're missing out on. Again, just like blocking, to truly understand how powerful they are, I just want you to go into a room full of ninjas and just start throwing them. Throw them while jumping, throw them while moving, throw them stationary. See just how long these ninjas spend being stunned, and then start incorporating it into your play. Now that we have the shurikens out of the way, we can talk about the dragon sword. The main combo you're gonna be using is light, heavy. It does a lot of damage and is very short and safe. I want you to practice this sequence. Hold the block as you usually do, let go of it, input the string, and hold the block again. This would make it so Ryu starts blocking as soon as possible. Once you have this whole sequence down and it feels natural, you're ready to proceed with the game. Tilting the stick towards the direction Ryu is looking at and pressing heavy attack at the same time will launch him and the enemy. This will let you do an air combo. You can do a normal light attack in the air, but also, after a couple of chapters, you have the option to buy a Zuna drop. From there, by pressing light attack 3 times, then heavy attack once, you're going to a Zuna drop an enemy. It does a lot of damage, it has a lot of splash damage at the bottom, and is relatively safe. You should abuse it as much as possible. I also would like for you to recall an earlier section where I mentioned that it's very important to learn how to keep the left stick neutral. This is yet another reason why. A lot of the times in Ninja Gaiden, to alter the properties of a combo or do a certain move, you will have to tilt the left stick. You can't exactly tilt it quickly if you're already holding it in a certain direction. Yet another thing I need you to recall is during the movement section I talked about a homing jump, when you press light attack and jump at the same time. This is important because after a couple of chapters you're going to get the flying swallow, one of your main tools. How it works is, once you're jumping towards an enemy, if you press the heavy attack, you're gonna do an air slash. It is very powerful, especially on normal mode, but players usually find it very difficult to aim. That's exactly the problem, they're aiming it. You're supposed to use the homing jump in conjunction along with the heavy attack. That way you can almost never miss it. Speaking of very powerful player tools, use wall attacks. How you do them is, you're up against any flat surface, jump off the top, and press any of the attack buttons. Ryu will do a downward slash that does an incredible amount of damage. As you can see, in this clip I'm one-shotting these normal ninjas. Now, enemies won't always be one-shot, but if you're gonna position near a wall, you might as well, because there's already an inherent risk to that. If enemies hit you, knock you away, and you hit a wall, well, you're gonna take way more damage. You activate Nimpo by pressing the heavy attack button and the shuriken button at once. It consumes one charge and makes Ryu invincible through the entirety of its duration. Not only that, you can cancel almost any action in the game with it. I want you to think about it like a multifaceted get out of jail card, because not only can it get you out of stick situations and cancel any type of stun lock you're in, you can also use it to deal great amounts of damage. You need to keep that in mind, because not only will you get multiple uses out of it per checkpoint, you're gonna also have items that let you replenish it, so use it as much as you can. While all of this seems like a lot, I'm only really scratching the surface. On your journey through the game, you're gonna be getting many more Nimpo, ranged attacks, and weapons, so you should always be experimenting with the best option for each situation. Hell, even the Dragon Sword itself not only has more combos from the get-go than what I covered, but also evolves as the game goes on. For now, just stick to the basics, until you get a hold of the game and understand it. I purposefully saved Essence for last because it's one of the most important, yet misunderstood mechanics. When an enemy dies, they drop an orb. This orb will naturally gravitate towards you. If it's yellow, it's for money, if it's blue, it's for health, and if it's red, it's for Nimpo. Now you can either let them float to you, or hold down the block button, which will keep them stationary. The reason why we want them stationary is if at any point while landing on the ground from a jump or a fall, you hold down the heavy attack button, Ryu will suck up all the essence in the air and will do an ultimate technique, or UT for short. This is a very powerful attack that does a lot of damage, and not only that, Ryu is completely invincible during it. This is the core of Ninja Gaiden. This is your game plan for almost every single fight in the game. Kill one or two enemies and suck up all the essence to do a big attack. It's also very important to know that this attack is worth using not only for the damage and the invincibility, but also for the fact that it multiplies the money that enemies drop. So the entire game plan of encounters will be you setting up a UT by killing one or two enemies, UTing and then keeping the chain going as much as possible to both get as much money as possible and to be as safe as possible. This about wraps up our short crash course. While it seems like I've provided a lot of information, please keep in mind that this is only the very basics that you need to have a game plan. You'll be meeting a lot more challenges on your journey, different bosses, and you'll be acquiring a lot more tools. It's also good to keep in mind that every difficulty remixes the game completely, so you should ideally be playing the game through multiple times until you get to Master Ninja. Speaking of Master Ninja, you should check out a channel called JTB. He has a lot of really amazing Ninja Gaiden guides, which will help you if you need more in-depth information about a specific section, boss, or weapon. I also want to do a shout out to Stinger magazine. That is where you can find an article for each Ninja Gaiden version and what it includes and doesn't. It's a very good resource for action games in general. Now it's time for you to take your newfound information and go with Zuna drop some enemies.